I am Gabriella, 30 years old and owner of a luxury hotel chain most people save their whole lives to experience for just one night. Started as a hospitality student with big dreams. Now I run 15 properties across 3 continents. Yet somehow I still found myself seeking approval from parents who never supported my choices. When my phone buzzed with that text from Dad, I stared in disbelief. "You're not welcome in our 5-star hotel." The irony was almost laughable. Their 5-star hotel. I smiled, picking up my phone. "Security, please revoke the Whitaker family's VIP access." If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know which city you are viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me as this family drama unfolds in the most luxurious setting possible. Growing up in Brookfield, an affluent Chicago suburb, my childhood looked perfect from the outside. Our colonial-style house, with its manicured lawn, and my parents, Charles and Angela Whitaker, were the picture of upper-middle-class success. Dad built his reputation as one of Chicago's most sought-after corporate attorneys, while Mom maintained our family's social standing in the community, hosting charity galas and sitting on boards of various cultural institutions. From an early age, I understood that in the Whitaker household, status and reputation were everything. Law, medicine, finance. These were the only career paths worthy of consideration. Hospitality? That was, as my father often dismissively put it, a servant's profession. My fascination with hotels began during our family vacations. While my parents networked with other successful couples by the pool, I would wander through grand lobbies, mesmerized by the orchestrated chaos that somehow resulted in perfect service. "Gabriella, stop bothering the concierge with your questions," Mom would scold, pulling me away. "They're busy working." But I couldn't help myself. I collected hotel brochures, studied room layouts, and took notes about amenities. By 12, I could tell you the difference between a standard turn-down service and the elaborate rituals at 5-star properties. My room at home became an archive of hotel ephemera, key cards, branded pins, even those little shampoo bottles that housekeeping would give me when I asked politely. "This is just a phase," Dad would tell Mom when they thought I couldn't hear. "She will grow out of this nonsense and focus on something substantial." High school brought academic success. Straight A's, debate team captain, editor of the school newspaper. But none of it seemed to matter unless it aligned with my parents' vision. When I won a regional essay contest about innovation in the service industry, Dad barely looked up from his legal briefs. "That's nice, honey," he said. "But make sure you are focusing on your political science coursework. That will actually help you in law school." The real battle began during college application season. While my parents dropped not-so-subtle hints about Harvard, Yale, and Columbia law programs, I secretly applied to the top hospitality management schools in the country. The acceptance letter from Cornell's hotel administration program arrived first. I still remember the weight of that envelope in my hands, how my fingers trembled as I opened it. This was my ticket to the future I actually wanted. When I showed my parents, the temperature in our living room dropped 20 degrees. "This is not what we discussed," Dad said, his voice dangerously quiet. "This is not the path for a Whitaker. It is the path for this Whitaker," I replied, surprising even myself with my determination. The ultimatum came swiftly. Study their choice or pay my own way. I chose independence. Through student loans and working 3 part-time jobs simultaneously, front desk at a local hotel, waitressing on weekends, and tutoring wealthy kids in French, I put myself through one of the most prestigious hospitality programs in the world. Contact with my parents dwindled during those 4 years. Birthday calls lasted 5 minutes. Holiday visits became increasingly strained. When I graduated with honors, My parents were noticeably absent. They had chosen to attend my brother Thomas's law school graduation ceremony that happened to fall on the same weekend. "We are sure you understand," Mom said over the phone. "This is such an important milestone for him." The message was clear. His accomplishment mattered more. That day, something shifted inside me. As I sat alone after the ceremony, watching other graduates celebrate with their families, I made a silent promise to myself that one day they would regret underestimating me. Little did I know how prophetic that thought would become, or how much emotional distance would grow between us over the years to come. Armed with my Cornell degree and a determination fueled partly by parental dismissal, I moved to Manhattan and landed my first job as a front desk associate at the Archer, a boutique hotel in Midtown. The starting salary was barely enough to afford a tiny studio apartment in Queens that I shared with 2 other hospitality graduates. But I was finally in the industry I loved. I worked ridiculous hours, volunteering for overnight shifts, covering for sick colleagues, and studying every aspect of the operation. Sleep became a luxury I rarely afforded myself. When other associates complained about demanding guests, I saw each difficult interaction as an opportunity to prove my problem-solving abilities. 6 months in, a guest had a complete meltdown over a room assignment. As he berated my colleague, I stepped in with a solution that not only calmed him down, but turned him into a loyal patron. What I did not realize was that Catherine Reynolds, the regional director for Pinnacle Hotels, who happened to be in the lobby, witnessed the entire exchange. "You handled that with exceptional grace," she said, approaching the desk after the guest departed. "What is your name?" That chance encounter changed everything. Catherine became my mentor, recognizing something in me that even I had not fully understood yet. She began inviting me to observe management meetings and soliciting my input on guest experience improvements. When a massive booking system failure left the hotel overbooked by 30 rooms during Fashion Week, I stayed up all night calling partner properties and arranging transportation for displaced guests. The next morning, Catherine promoted me to assistant manager. I called my parents, hoping that this first significant promotion might finally earn some recognition. "Assistant manager?" Dad chuckled. "So, you are still playing hotelier. When are you going to get serious about your future, Gabriella?" I hung up and cried in the supply closet for 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, reapplied my makeup, and returned to the floor with a smile. Their approval no longer mattered, I told myself. It was a lie, but a necessary one. Catherine continued giving me special projects, challenging me beyond my job description. When Pinnacle's Chicago property began struggling with occupancy rates, she suggested I temporarily relocate to help turn it around. "This could make or break your career trajectory," she warned. "The team there is resistant to change and the market is highly competitive." "When do I start?" I asked without hesitation. My parents, predictably, thought I was making another mistake. "Jumping from job to job shows instability," Mom lectured during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "No one wants to hire someone who cannot commit." In Chicago, I developed an innovative marketing campaign targeting young professionals and tech company travelers, redesigned the food and beverage program, and implemented new training protocols for staff. Within 9 months, our occupancy increased by 40% and revenue per available room shot up to lead the market. The property went from Pinnacle's problem child to its most improved location nationally. This success caught the attention of James Hartford, Pinnacle's CEO, who invited me to participate in the company's fast-track executive program. At 25, I became the youngest participant in the program's history. "When will you get a real career?" Dad asked during Thanksgiving dinner after I shared my news. "Hotel management is fine for now, but you cannot build a substantial future in service." I stopped sharing my professional achievements with them after that night. Over the next 2 years, I rose through Pinnacle's corporate ranks while simultaneously developing my own business philosophy. I kept a secret document on my laptop, a comprehensive business plan for acquiring and revitalizing struggling boutique hotels. Every night, I refined this plan, researching market trends and identifying potential properties that fit my vision. When Catherine introduced me to a group of investors who had been impressed by my work at Pinnacle, I was ready. My presentation was polished from countless practice sessions in front of my bathroom mirror. To my astonishment, they agreed to back my venture. At 27, I signed papers for my first property, a once grand hotel in Providence that had fallen into disrepair and financial trouble. Taking on that level of debt was terrifying. I would wake up at 3 in the morning, heart pounding, wondering if I had made a catastrophic mistake. But during daylight hours, confidence returned. I assembled a small but dedicated team who believed in my vision for what would become the first Whitaker Luxury Collection property. The 18 months that followed were the most challenging and rewarding of my life. I worked 17-hour days handling everything from refinancing negotiations to selecting the thread count for the bed linens. When the property reopened after renovations, the response exceeded even my optimistic projections. We reached profitability 3 months earlier than the business plan had estimated. Success bred success. With the Providence property generating positive cash flow and excellent press, securing funding for a second location became easier. A third followed 14 months later. The Whitaker Luxury Collection was becoming a recognized name in the industry, known for personalized service and thoughtfully designed spaces that respected each property's unique character and history. At 29, I received the Rising Star in Hospitality Award at a major industry conference. For the first time in years, my parents attended an event related to my career. I spotted them in the back of the ballroom, looking uncomfortable and out of place among the hospitality executives. "We are proud of you," Mom said afterward, air kissing near my cheek. "Though I still wonder when you will find time to settle down with all this hotel business keeping you busy." Dad examined his watch repeatedly during the reception, making it clear he had more important places to be. The speech was nice, very enthusiastic. "Is there much money in all this?" That brief reconciliation attempt only reinforced the distance between us. They still did not see the value in what I had built, viewing it as some extended phase rather than the empire it was rapidly becoming. When James Hartford announced his retirement the following year, Pinnacle Hotels found itself in a vulnerable position. Using every business connection I had made and leveraging the success of the Whitaker brand, I secured financing for what seemed impossible, acquiring the entire Pinnacle portfolio. The business press called it the hospitality coup of the decade. At 30, I rebranded the entire operation as a Whitaker Luxury Properties, suddenly finding myself at the helm of 15 hotels across 3 continents with over 3,000 employees. Throughout all this growth and success, my parents remained almost willfully unaware of the scale of my achievements. Despite occasional press coverage and industry recognition, they continued to speak of my career as if I were some kind of manager, rather than the owner and CEO of a rapidly expanding luxury brand. I stopped trying to make them understand. Instead, I channeled all my energy into building something undeniable. Each new property received my obsessive attention. I personally designed the penthouses, selected the signature scents for the lobbies, and trained management on the Whitaker service standards that were becoming legendary among discerning travelers. My executive team became the family that supported and celebrated my vision. Catherine, who had left Pinnacle to join my company as Chief Operating Officer, provided the maternal guidance I no longer received from Angela. When Thomas made partner at his law firm, my parents threw an elaborate celebration. My invitation apparently got lost in the mail. I learned about the event from a cousin's social media post. The hurt was profound, but by then, I had become expert at transforming emotional pain into professional drive. I buried myself in work, expanding Whitaker's footprint and reputation. Industry accolades poured in, but the personal emptiness remained. The irony wasn't lost on me. I owned properties where families gathered to celebrate special moments together, while my own family relationships withered from neglect and misunderstanding. Walking through my hotels, I would sometimes pause to watch multi-generational families laughing together over dinner, or parents proudly celebrating their children's accomplishments in our event spaces. These moments would trigger a hollow ache in my chest, a reminder of what success could not buy. By my 30th birthday, Whitaker Luxury Properties had become synonymous with exceptional experiences for the discerning traveler. Our properties regularly topped world's best lists, and our loyalty program members included celebrities, royalty, and business elite. The Whitaker name, once associated only with my father's legal reputation in Chicago, now appeared on buildings in New York, San Francisco, London, Singapore, and beyond. I celebrated this milestone birthday alone in my New York penthouse, overlooking Central Park from 40 floors up. The view was spectacular, the champagne perfectly chilled, but the achievement felt hollow without anyone who truly understood the journey to share it with. My phone contained congratulatory messages from my executive team, industry colleagues, and even former professors from Cornell, but nothing from my family. I told myself it did not matter. Another necessary lie. The emotional wall between us had grown so high that even basic communication had become performative and empty. Monthly calls lasted barely 5 minutes, focused on weather and surface-level pleasantries. They knew better than to ask about the hotel work, and I knew better than to volunteer information they would only diminish. My brother Thomas called occasionally, usually when he needed hotel recommendations for clients. He seemed genuinely oblivious to the fact that I owned the very properties he was inquiring about. I would listen to him name-drop connections who could get him a good rate at Whitaker Properties, never revealing that a single call to me would have resulted in a complimentary stay. The Whitaker in Chicago is supposedly excellent, he once said. Do you know anyone who works there who could help me arrange something special for an important client? I might know someone, I replied, fighting back inappropriate laughter. The next day, I had the general manager personally upgrade Thomas's client to the presidential suite and provide VIP treatment throughout their stay. Thomas later bragged about his industry connections during a family dinner I did not attend. This disconnect extended to every aspect of my relationship with my family. They had created a narrative about my life and career that bore little resemblance to reality, and I had stopped trying to correct it. It was easier to be the slightly disappointing daughter who worked in hotels than to repeatedly face their inability to value what I had built. I channeled this hurt into creating the most exceptional hotel experiences possible. If my own family could not see my worth, I would ensure that every guest who entered a Whitaker property felt genuinely valued. Our service standards became legendary. Staff members were trained to anticipate needs before guests articulated them, to remember returning guest preferences without prompting, to solve problems with creativity and grace. The Whitaker philosophy centered on making people feel seen and appreciated, precisely what I had always craved from my parents. This approach generated fierce customer loyalty and industry recognition. But the personal emptiness remained. You have built something extraordinary, Catherine observed during one late-night strategy session. But when was the last time you did anything just for Gabriella, the person, not Gabriella, the CEO? I had no answer. My identity had become completely entwined with the Whittaker brand. Without the constant drive to expand and improve, who was I? The question remained unanswered as I continued building my empire. When our 15th property, a historic building in Chicago's Back Bay that I had coveted since my Cornell days, finally opened after an extensive renovation, I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt oddly detached during the grand opening gala. Standing on the stage, accepting accolades from the mayor and tourism officials, I scanned the crowd out of habit, still half expecting to see my parents, despite not having invited them. The absence was both a relief and a persistent ache. The Chicago property held special significance. It was a homecoming of sorts, a Whittaker establishment in the city where I had grown up feeling inadequate. Part of me had fantasized about my parents stumbling upon it, finally realizing what their daughter had accomplished. Another part dreaded the inevitable disappointment if they still failed to understand. After the opening, life returned to its familiar pattern of 18-hour workdays, international flights, and constant problem-solving. I maintained apartments in New York, London, and Singapore, but none of them felt like home. My executive assistant began scheduling personal time in my calendar, blocks that I invariably filled with more work. The news of my sister Grace's engagement arrived via text message one Tuesday morning as I was reviewing quarterly projections. Grace was 5 years younger than me, the baby of the family who had followed a more traditional path as an elementary school teacher. We had been close as children, but had drifted apart as my career took me farther from Chicago. Brian proposed last night, wedding next spring, would love for you to be a bridesmaid if your hotel stuff allows time off. Miss you. I stared at the message for several minutes, surprised by the invitation and the rush of emotion it triggered. Despite our distance, Grace wanted me in her wedding party. Perhaps some family connections remained salvageable after all. My reply was immediate. Absolutely yes. Just tell me when and where. So happy for you. What I did not expect was how this wedding would become the catalyst for a family confrontation years in the making, or how it would finally force me to confront the cost of success without authentic connection. 2 weeks after accepting Grace's bridesmaid invitation, I received another text that made my stomach drop. Mom and Dad are insisting on handling everything. They have already booked the Whittaker in Chicago for the ceremony and reception. Ironic, right? Some fancy hotel with your name? Weird coincidence. My sister had no idea. None of them did. Somehow, despite press coverage, industry recognition, and the Whittaker name literally on buildings in major cities, my family remained completely unaware that I owned the very hotel where they were planning to host her wedding. For a moment, I considered telling Grace immediately, but something held me back. What if this could be the moment they finally saw my success with their own eyes? What if they experienced the Whittaker standard of service and recognized what I had built before knowing it was mine? The decision weighed heavily as I drafted my response. Sounds beautiful. Looking forward to it. This choice set in motion a series of events I could never have anticipated. Within days, the booking notification appeared in our system. Whittaker Family Wedding, Chicago Property, Spring 2023. As the owner, I received automatic alerts for high-value bookings across all properties, and my family's event qualified due to the extensive room block and full ballroom rental. I called Marcus Jenkins, the general manager in Chicago, to discuss the situation. "Your family is booking our property and they do not know you own it?" he clarified, understandably confused. "Correct, and I would like to keep it that way for now." "May I ask why, Miss Whittaker?" A fair question without a simple answer. "I just need to handle this in my own way. Please ensure they receive impeccable service, but do not reveal my connection to the property." Marcus, consummate professional that he was, simply replied, "Of course. Consider it handled." For the next month, I received updates about the wedding planning process. My parents toured the property, met with the events team, and began making arrangements, all while having no idea their daughter was the owner, signing off on every decision. The first in-person encounter came during the initial venue tour. I watched through security cameras from the management office as my family entered the lobby. Grace looked radiant with excitement, while her fiancé Brian seemed appropriately impressed by the grandeur of the space. My parents, however, immediately began examining everything with critical eyes. The lobby seemed smaller than it appeared online, my mother commented to the events coordinator, a talented woman named Alicia, whom I had personally hired. The floral arrangements are a bit ostentatious, my father added, gesturing toward the signature Whitaker display of fresh orchids and roses that I refreshed weekly with selections from local florists. I watched Alicia maintain her professional composure as she guided them through the property, explaining the amenities and services available for wedding parties. When they reached the grand ballroom, a space I had personally overseen the restoration of, preserving its 19th century architectural details while adding modern lighting and acoustic enhancements, my father immediately began negotiating. "This standard package will not do for our daughter," he insisted. "We expect significant upgrades given the size of our booking." Alicia glanced momentarily toward the camera, knowing I was watching. I sent her a quick text. "Offer Whitaker celebration package at standard rate." This package, normally reserved for our most elite clients and priced accordingly, included numerous luxury enhancements. Offering it at the standard rate was unprecedented, but I wanted Grace to have the perfect wedding, despite my parents' behavior. As the planning progressed, my parents' demands escalated. They requested room upgrades for 20 family members, special menu items not on our catering list, extended hours for the reception, and numerous other accommodations that would have been flatly refused for any other client. I approved them all, watching from a distance as my staff struggled to maintain their professionalism in the face of increasingly entitled behavior. Grace, meanwhile, seemed genuinely appreciative and somewhat embarrassed by our parents' approach. During one planning meeting, after my father berated a staff member over the shade of white used in the sample table linens, I heard her apologize. "I am so sorry about my dad," she told Alicia when our parents stepped away. "This means a lot to them, but they are being ridiculous." "No apology necessary," Alicia assured her with a genuine warmth that made her excellent at her job. "We want your day to be perfect." As the wedding weekend approached, I arranged to be present as a bridesmaid while continuing to maintain my secret. The charade was becoming increasingly complicated, but I was committed to seeing it through. The rehearsal dinner, held in our private dining room, became the flashpoint. My father had selected an expensive wine that was served at precisely the wrong temperature. His reaction was immediate and disproportionate. "This is completely unacceptable," he shouted at Ryan, our 23-year-old sommelier who had recently completed his certification. "For what we are paying, I expect perfection. Get me the manager immediately." Before Ryan could respond, I stepped in, unable to watch my staff be mistreated any longer. "Is there a problem with the service?" I asked, momentarily forgetting that I was supposed to be just another bridesmaid. My father turned to me, surprised. "Gabriella, this is not your concern. I need to speak with management about the incompetence of their staff." "I am happy to help resolve the issue," I replied, carefully, signaling Ryan to give us a moment. "Since when do you know anything about fine wine service?" my father scoffed. "Just because you work at some hotel does not make you an expert on proper hospitality." The irony of his statement might have been humorous under different circumstances. Instead, it just highlighted how little they understood about my life. "I know enough to recognize that the staff here is doing an excellent job," I said evenly. "Perhaps we could address any concerns privately, without disrupting Grace's dinner." "What I need," my father insisted, his voice rising, "is to speak to whoever owns this place. Their staff needs proper training." Little did he know, He was already speaking to the owner. The moment to reveal the truth hovered between us, but Grace's pleading expression convinced me to let it pass. This was her rehearsal dinner, not the time for family revelations. I will make sure your concerns are addressed, I promised, stepping away to speak with Marcus, who had been observing the situation from near the kitchen entrance. Have the 1982 Bordeaux brought up from my private collection, I instructed him quietly. Serve it with my compliments, but do not mention my connection. The wine, worth several thousands per bottle and not on any menu, arrived moments later. Ryan presented it with perfect professional form, explaining its provenance and exceptional quality. My father, momentarily silenced by the gesture, accepted the wine without further complaint. The remainder of the evening passed without incident, but the tension remained palpable. As I retired to my penthouse suite that night, a room my family assumed I had simply been upgraded to because of Grace's wedding, I knew the fragile peace would not last. The real confrontation was still coming. The morning of Grace's wedding arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that event planners dream about. Clear blue skies, mild temperature, gentle breeze. From my penthouse window, I could see the Chicago River coming alive with fresh greenery and early tourists. Under different circumstances, it would have been a day of pure celebration. My phone buzzed with an urgent message from Marcus. Mr. Whitaker, demanding complete reset of ballroom claims table configuration is wrong despite approving final layout last week. Staff attempting to accommodate but cannot complete before ceremony without additional resources. I checked the time, 7:30 in the morning, with the ceremony scheduled for 4 in the afternoon. Such a major change would normally be impossible, but I immediately authorized overtime for additional staff and called in our auxiliary event team. Before I could even shower, another message arrived. Mrs. Whitaker insisting on floral changes, rejected delivery from approved vendor, demanding specific orchid variety not seasonally available. The messages continued throughout the morning. My father wanted the premium bar package, enhanced with specific bourbon brands not in our inventory. My mother decided the chairs needed different sashes than the ones they had selected weeks ago. The approved menu suddenly required modifications to accommodate forgotten dietary restrictions. Each demand came with the implicit or explicit threat that they would take their business elsewhere if not accommodated, oblivious to the fact that relocating a 200-person wedding with 8 hours' notice was virtually impossible. By 11 o'clock, Marcus called rather than texted, his normally unflappable demeanor showing clear strain. Miss Whitaker, I apologize, but the situation has become untenable. Your father is now in the ballroom personally directing my staff on moving tables. He told Carmen from our events team that she obviously does not understand proper event layout and should find another profession. Carmen was a 20-year veteran of the industry who had worked for the Ritz-Carlton before I recruited her to Whitaker. The thought of my father berating her made something snap inside me. I am coming down, I said. Please assemble the executive team in the presidential suite. It is time to address this situation directly. After quickly dressing in one of my signature business suits rather than the bridesmaid dress hanging in my closet, I texted Grace, "Need to speak with Mom and Dad urgently regarding wedding arrangements. Can you direct them to the presidential suite? I will explain everything soon." Her confused reply came quickly. "What is going on? They're in the ballroom terrorizing the staff. What do you need to talk to them about?" "Trust me," I wrote back. "This is important." 20 minutes later, my parents arrived at the presidential suite, clearly irritated at being pulled away from their micromanagement of the wedding preparations. Their expressions shifted from annoyance to confusion when they found not only me, but also Marcus and 5 other members of the Whitaker executive team waiting for them. "Gabriella, what is the meaning of this?" my father demanded. "We have a wedding to finalize, and the staff here needs constant supervision to get anything right." I took a deep breath, acutely aware that this moment would permanently alter our family dynamic. "I need to clarify something," I began. "The staff you have been berating since you arrived are not just hotel employees. They are my employees. Every person you have spoken to, every service you have demanded, every accommodation you have received, all of it has happened under my authority." My mother's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about? Are you working here now? Is that why you are dressed like that instead of getting ready with the bridesmaids?" "I do not work here," I replied steadily. "I own here. Whitaker Luxury Properties is my company. I founded it. I built it. I own all 15 properties across 3 continents, including this one. The silence that followed was absolute. My father's face cycled through expressions: disbelief, confusion, and finally a flash of embarrassment, quickly replaced by defensiveness. "That is impossible," he finally said. "You manage hotels. You never mentioned owning anything of this scale." I stopped mentioning my career achievements when it became clear they did not interest you, I replied. "But yes, this is my company. The Whitaker in the name is not a coincidence." My mother sank into one of the suite's plush armchairs. "You own all of this? Since when?" "I founded the company 5 years ago with one property. We acquired Pinnacle Hotels 2 years ago and rebranded as Whitaker Luxury Properties. It has been covered extensively in the business press." My father's expression hardened. "So you have been deceiving us this entire time? Letting us book this venue without telling us you owned it? What kind of game are you playing?" The accusation stung despite its absurdity. "Game? You have dismissed my career at every turn. You have treated my staff, some of the most dedicated and professional people in the industry, with contempt. You have made demands that would be rejected outright from any other client, all of which I approved because I wanted Grace to have a perfect wedding." "This is mortifying," my mother whispered, likely remembering every critical comment she had made about the design elements I had personally selected. At that moment, Grace and Brian appeared at the suite door, which had remained ajar. "What is going on?" Grace asked, looking between us with growing alarm. "Why is everyone in here instead of getting ready?" "Your sister has been hiding things from the family," my father began. "That is not fair," I interrupted. "I have never hidden anything. You simply never asked, never showed interest. Do you know how many interviews I have given about building this company? How many industry awards ceremonies I have attended alone because my own family could not be bothered to show up?" Grace's eyes widened. "Wait, you own this hotel? The Whitaker is your company? Why did you never say anything?" "Would it have mattered?" I asked softly. "When has anything I have accomplished ever been enough?" My father dismissed this with a wave. "This is hardly the time for your theatrics, Gabriella. We have a wedding to finish arranging, and now we discover our own daughter has been watching us like some kind of spy in her hotel." 3,000 employees, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. 15 properties, a company valued at $1.2 billion. I built all of this while you were telling everyone I had a cute little job in hotel management. The numbers finally seemed to penetrate. My father fell silent, actually taking in the information for the first time. After a long pause, he asked, "Why did you not tell us the company had grown to this extent? As family, we should have been informed about such developments." His question missed the point so dramatically that I almost laughed. "Informed? As family? When exactly have you treated me as family, Dad? Was it when you refused to help with college because I chose hospitality instead of law? Or when you skipped my graduation? Or maybe when you forgot to invite me to Thomas's partner celebration?" "We have always supported you," my mother protested weakly. "No," I replied firmly. "You have always tolerated me. There's a difference." Grace moved to my side, taking my hand. "Gabriella, I had no idea about any of this. Why did you keep it from me too?" It was easier than constantly explaining why our parents could not acknowledge my success, I admitted. "I am sorry for not telling you." My father, rather than processing the emotional significance of the moment, shifted immediately to practical considerations. "Well, now that we know about this connection, I assume the family will receive appropriate discounts for future stays. We have been paying full price all this time when we could have been getting family rates." That question, so perfectly encapsulating his inability to see beyond himself, was the final straw. "This is what you take from this moment?" I asked incredulously. "Not pride in what your daughter has built, not regret for how you have treated her staff, some of the most dedicated and professional people in the industry, just concern about whether you have been getting the best possible price?" Brian, who had remained silent until now, gently suggested, "Perhaps we should consider moving the wedding to another venue. This seems like a complicated situation, and we do not want family tension to overshadow the day." My father seized on this immediately. Yes, that might be best. We would not want to impose on Gabriella's business. His tone made the statement an insult rather than a consideration. "The contract has been signed," I pointed out. "Everything is prepared. Moving now would be logistically impossible." "Then we will simply proceed as clients rather than family," my father declared coldly, "since that appears to be how you prefer to arrange matters." With that, he took out his phone and typed something. Seconds later, my own phone buzzed with a message. I looked down to read, "You're not welcome in our 5-star hotel. Your presence would make the family uncomfortable at Grace's wedding. Please respect our wishes as clients." The breathtaking audacity of the text, claiming ownership of my hotel while banning me from my sister's wedding, left me momentarily speechless. When I found my voice, it was perfectly steady. "Marcus, please escort Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker back to their suite. Grace, I am so sorry this is happening on your wedding day. I would never want to ruin this for you." "Gabriella, please," Grace began, tears forming in her eyes. "It is all right," I assured her. "Your day should be perfect." As my parents were led from the room, I picked up my phone and typed a message to our head of security. "Please revoke the Whitaker family's VIP access effective midnight tonight. Standard guest protocols only." The wedding proceeded without me. I watched from security feeds in my office as Grace, beautiful but visibly distressed, exchanged vows with Brian. I watched my parents accept congratulations from guests, presenting themselves as the proud family, while I sat alone in my tower above them. At midnight, precisely as the reception wound down, their keycards stopped working with VIP access. No more entrance to the exclusive Whitaker Club Lounge, no more priority service, no more special amenities. They had wanted to be treated as regular clients rather than family. I was simply honoring their request. When my father called the front desk to complain, he was politely informed that their access level had been adjusted according to management instructions. "Do you know who I am?" I heard him demand through the recorded call. "Yes, sir. You are Charles Whitaker, guest in room 812. The night manager replied professionally. "I would be happy to send a new keycard with standard guest access." It was a small, perhaps petty victory that provided little consolation as I sat alone in my office, watching my family celebrate without me. The days following Grace's wedding passed in a blur of work and emotional numbness. I threw myself into operations with even greater intensity than usual, scheduling back-to-back meetings that left no time for reflection. My executive team exchanged concerned glances, but knew better than to mention the wedding or my family. Industry blogs and social media had picked up fragments of the Whitaker family drama. Speculation ran wild, with some outlets suggesting internal company conflict and others reporting a hostile takeover attempt by relatives. Our PR team worked overtime to minimize the damage, but the gossip persisted. A week after the wedding, I retreated to my New York penthouse, claiming a rare weekend off. In reality, I could no longer maintain the facade of being unaffected. The emotional wall I had built over years had cracked, and everything was pouring through. Catherine arrived unannounced Saturday morning using the emergency access code I had given her years ago. "You are not answering calls or emails," she said, finding me still in pajamas at 11 in the morning, surrounded by takeout containers and spreadsheets. "The team is worried." "I am fine," I insisted automatically, just catching up on quarterly projections. Catherine, who had known me since I was a front desk associate, handling irate guests with perfect composure, simply raised an eyebrow. Gabriella, I have watched you build an empire by transforming pain into ambition. But eventually, the pain needs to be addressed directly. What would you suggest? I asked, aiming for sarcasm, but hearing the vulnerability in my voice instead. Family therapy. Somehow, I do not think the Whitakers are candidates for group healing. Catherine sat beside me on the sofa, gently closing my laptop. This has never been about them. This is about you. What you need, what you have been seeking through all of this success. I built this company because I believe in exceptional hospitality, I protested. You built this company to prove your worth to people who were never going to see it, she countered gently. And in the process, you created something extraordinary. But the hole inside does not get filled with more properties or higher profit margins. The truth of her words broke something open inside me. For the first time since I was a child, I allowed myself to cry openly in front of another person. Years of suppressed hurt, disappointment, and longing poured out as Catherine simply sat with me, offering the maternal comfort Angela had never provided. When the storm of emotion finally subsided, Catherine said, "Your success is real. Your company is extraordinary. Neither of those things requires your parents' validation to be true." "Then why does it still hurt so much?" I whispered. "Because you are human," she replied simply, "and it is time you allowed yourself to be." That conversation marked the beginning of a different kind of journey. The next day, I made 2 calls, one to a highly recommended therapist specializing in family trauma, and another to Grace. My sister answered immediately. "Gabriella, I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay?" "Not really," I admitted, the honesty feeling foreign but necessary. "But I am working on it. How was the honeymoon?" "Beautiful, but overshadowed by what happened." "I had no idea, Gabriella." "About the company. About how Mom and Dad have treated you all these years. I feel terrible." "You have nothing to feel terrible about," I assured her. "I should have been more open with you." "They were wrong," she said firmly. "What they did at the wedding was unforgivable." "Have you spoken to them since returning?" "Yes," she sighed. "They have their own version of events, of course. Dad is still angry about the keycard incident." Despite everything, this made me laugh. "Of course he is." "I want us to stay connected," Grace said. "Whatever happens with them, I do not want to lose my sister again." That simple affirmation meant more than she could know. Over the following months, I maintained limited contact with my parents while focusing on my own healing. Weekly therapy sessions helped me recognize patterns. I had never acknowledged how my entire identity had become wrapped up in proving my worth through achievement, how I measured my value through external validation rather than internal fulfillment. Success was my armor, I told my therapist during one particularly insightful session. If I could just be successful enough, impressive enough, it would not matter that my own parents did not value me. "And now," she prompted, "now I'm beginning to understand that no amount of success can heal that wound. Only I can do that." This realization led to gradual changes in how I operated. I established the Whitaker Hospitality Foundation, providing scholarships for first-generation college students pursuing careers in the industry. I developed mentorship programs for young professionals whose families did not support their career choices. For the first time, I began cultivating a life outside work. I reconnected with college friends I had lost touch with during my single-minded climb. 6 months after the wedding incident, I received an unexpected email from my mother. The subject line simply read, "Saw this," with a link to a Wall Street Journal profile of me and the Whitaker brand. The article detailed the company's growth, innovative approach to hospitality, and my personal journey from front desk associate to industry leader. The body of the email contained just one line. We had no idea it was this significant. After considerable thought, I replied, "There is a lot we do not know about each other. Perhaps that could change." This tentative exchange opened a channel of communication, though progress remained slow and fragile. 1 year after the wedding confrontation, I stood on the balcony of our newest property in Paris, watching the Eiffel Tower lights shimmer against the evening sky. For the first time, I had approached a property opening with a sense of balance. What is your experience with family members who dismissed your dreams? Have you ever had to prove yourself to people who should have believed in you from the start? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and self-discovery. Share with someone who might need encouragement to follow their own path, even when those closest to them do not understand. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, sometimes the greatest triumph is not proving others wrong, but discovering you no longer need their approval to know your own worth.